One thing that is going to be important for us to quickly kind of go through is a brief discussion on really the anatomy and kind of the functionality of that region. So when Donnie says a term or a bone or a muscle or something, we're all on the same page. So we're not going in depth. This is the ankle and the foot, and along with like the wrist and hand, some of the most complicated regions of the body in terms of everything that's there. Like Donnie was talking about the muscles on the bottom of the foot. You have 4 different layers of muscles in the bottom of your foot. We're not going to go over all of those 13 or 14 muscles. But it's important to know that that is there and why we need to know that. So first and foremost, the bones of the lower leg here, the tibia and the fibula. We all know tibia is weight bearing. What's the fibula's purpose? Primarily is muscle attachment. Okay, that's the reason we need that. We have a couple of muscles that we're going to talk about that are really important in helping prevent ankle sprains, mainly because classic ankle sprain is that inversion movement. Okay, it's coming in, right? That's the most of what you're going to see. Well, if we can strengthen our peroneal muscles, or the fibularis muscles that attach on that fibula, well, their job is to evert the foot. So if we have a little bit more strengthening in those muscles, we can kind of prevent some of that inversion from happening. Okay? So it's important to know that you have a couple of muscles, longus and brevis, that come down, go around the backside of, these are called the Mountaineer Malleolus, that come down and attach and are involved in eversion of the foot. So that's important just because if we work on lateral strengthening, that Donnie's going to talk about, that most of us don't really do, that can really help in reducing that chance of ankle sprain. Okay? So those are kind of those muscles, are the bones and muscles on the lateral side of the foot coming down. The actual muscle, or the bony geometry of the foot, the tibia articulates primarily with the talus. So when we say talus, we're talking about the bone of the foot that tibia is sliding and gliding with. Okay, you're going to hear talus said a lot in here. Okay,
if I say talus.
Yeah, so it depends on where you're from. If you're going to school in the South, all my professors say talus. So, it depends probably where you are. Talus, same kind of thing. That's important, all right, because that joint, all right, is where we are going to work on trying to achieve more dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, okay? Now, a different joint is right below that, okay? And that's between the heel bone, or your calcaneus, and the talus itself, all right? That's called your subtalar joint. That's where we get that inversion, eversion. So your ankle joint is actually 3 different joints. The other one, the tibiofibular joint, we don't really need to talk about too much for what we're doing today. But there's 3 joints in one, and that makes up the ankle. So we're working on that talus, going back and forth for dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. And then when we do some of the eversion work that we're working on, trying to achieve a little more motion, that's actually the subtalar joint, or below talus. Okay, so we got that, another joint there, all right? So calcaneus, talus, or talus, however you want to say it, tibia and fibula. We're all kind of on the same page there. So if any of those terms come out, we all know what we're going on there. Donnie made a good point on the bottom of this foot here. He's talking about the metatarsals need to spread. Well, metatarsals a lot of times get locked down, mainly because you have all of that musculature and a bunch of that fascial layer that kind of hold them together. So some of the techniques that Team Money is going to go over here, or you can do yourself by using, we all have heard rolling out the bottom of your foot. You're working on decreasing some of the tonicity in those muscles, right? Possibly getting some more pliability in the fascia there, which is going to allow that spreading to happen. Right? So there are a ton of things going on the bottom of the foot there, and we're going to go over a few different ways to get those metatarsals to actually be able to spread. Another thing that I think is important to talk about here is, like Donnie said, the motion itself. When you're assessing here, a lot of times what I like to do is kind of ask, I try to feel, do I feel like it is bone, like there's trying to determine if it's joint stiffness or if it's stiffness in the musculature that's limiting the motion. Okay, because you could have 2 different reasons. Someone could just have a really, really tight posterior compartment. Their gastroc soleus, tibialis posterior, plantaris, everything else should just be so tight that they're not able to achieve that dorsiflexion. Or they could have some impaired sliding and gliding of the talus and the tibia. So you've got to determine, okay, where do I want to work to try to achieve that motion? So a lot of times I'll go through and I'll try to feel, does it feel almost bony, or does it feel like I'm kind of running into a roadblock, or does it just feel like it kind of gradually getting tighter because the musculature is reaching its end length there? Okay, so you're trying to determine, well, what's the real problem here? All right. As far as what Donnie was talking, he talked about the range of motion a little bit. Ideally, you're trying to work towards 20 degrees, 45 to 50 degrees plantar flexion. Like I said, most people don't usually lack plantar flexion. 5 to 15 eversion, you can get away. If you got 5, you're doing pretty well. Inversion is 35, but nobody's really lacking in inversion usually, unless you have some kind of surgery or some kind of alteration in there. I think it's important to know that you do need those things for all the reasons Donnie talked about. But one of the other things I want to talk about is this arch, and he briefly talked about that I guess the prevalence of flat feet within different ethnic groups. But you know what? That is something that is most likely not curable. All right, you're not going to take somebody that has a flat foot and all of a sudden they're going to have a beautiful arch that's going to stay like that. All right, I want to make that clear. A lot of that's genetic. All right, but you can do a lot to help kind of loosen that up a little bit, and we're going to talk about that. You have some muscle or some muscular attachments along the inside here that a lot of times you'll see almost like the shifting, as he talked about. The tibia will shift in, that navicular bone will drop, and all of a sudden they're sitting on the inside there. Well, there are some ways we can reset that a little bit, but one thing, don't expect to all of a sudden take somebody that has flat feet and turn them into a perfect arch. It's just not going to happen, but you can treat it and make some improvement. All right. See if there's anything else I didn't already talk about. Anything else you would think to add, T-Money, on the uncut? Yep, so you have a thick layer of fascia. And like Donnie said, you're not really stretching this fascia. So you talk to any orthopedic surgeons, they have to use a scalpel and go in and cut through to get through stuff. You don't just stretch this kind of stuff. But you can increase pliability, mainly through like a novel nervous system input. Okay? So by working on it in there, you're basically cueing the brain that can relax a little bit. It's more of kind of a neural adaptation than actually causing this tissue to lengthen, if that makes sense. So the plantar fascia, essentially, you have a part of your calcaneus, this medial tubercle here, that where the plantar fascia, this plantar aponeurosis, kind of comes all the way back down, and your fascia layer is all connected here. It's going all the way through here. So it's all one big chain. That's just coating this entire area.
It's connected from your feet to your head.
Yeah.
There's no interruptions.
Mm-hmm. And so, working on that too is going to be really important for mobility within the middle of your foot, being able to have those metatarsals spread. If there's anything specific you want to say about it?
Well, I mean, just basically, have anyone had plantar fasciitis? Anybody? You have? Okay. So you understand what basically what it feels like.
Yeah, horrible.
And then the treatment approach has been traditionally like stretching and things of that nature. But what we're all getting at is changing the dynamics of the foot to take the pressure and the strain constantly that's on that plantar fascia and more or less redirect it to other things, mainly your muscles. Okay, so you change the position of the foot through mobility work and tuning up those lateral structures he talked about that prevent ankle sprains. Doing some of those drills and there's one other one two immediately that you got to work on. And what that does is it's like an Eskimo walking on the snow, right? You don't have those snowshoes on, you go right in, all the force is applied to one point. And that's where that constant tension creates a plantar fascia situation. When you change the position of the nets, you change the position of the ankle in those main 3 areas he was talking about, those 3 joints, then you get the change of load off of that plantar fascia and onto what it's supposed to be on. And also footwear plays some part in that too. But that's the whole purpose behind what we're trying to go after with the plantar fascia specifically. So it helps a lot of things about the ankle as far as getting ground contact, right? More ground contact. But anybody that you know, and there's a lot of people in this world with plantar fascia, I see them all the time, you need to talk to them about this as well. You need to spread this knowledge, what we're going through today. I guarantee one of y'all's parents or one of y'all's friends somewhere has dealt with this before, and you need to take this to them and coach them up on that as well.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a little bit of the importance of the body tempering on the backside too. I think for me, not to go off the plantar fascia side, that's where I've seen the most effect in my own ankle mobility, because I like dorsiflexion in both ankles. That's actually the first reason why I came to the compound a long time ago, was to get Tiny to help me with my own ankles. And it's important to kind of know that you have that tendon, as Donnie talked about, your calcaneal tendon, your Achilles tendon, and you're not going to really stretch it, but you can do some things, because almost everyone has hypomobile the triceps surae area, which is basically your two gastroc heads and your soleus. Almost everybody has hypomobility or lack of mobility there. So taking time to really work on the static tempering on the Achilles, which is we're going to work on getting some more pliability there, but then also more of a dynamic tempering if we're going static and dynamic, working through those structures as well. I've seen more range with that than even the joint mobilizations. For me, it was almost more of a tightness in that area. So again, it comes back to assessing the person you're working on. Is it more of a tissue limitation here, or is it something with the joint that we need to work on too? But Team Lee is going to go do the first ankle so everybody can kind of see exactly some of the things that we're going to do. I know I don't do every single little thing for every single person. Again, it comes back to your assessment of the person. I don't necessarily need to work on somebody's plantar flexion if they don't necessarily need it, but if somebody does, okay, then I'm going to. And so that is kind of comes back to assess the person, figure out what they need, and then he's probably going to do all of these different things today. You don't necessarily have to do all those different things on each person. Just kind of figure out what does that person need, and then doing that for them.
Right. We're going to show you everything, but you don't have to do all this stuff. It's just for your arsenal. Okay.
If she's got an eversion, I don't need to do a lot of eversion work on her. So just assess your person, figure out what you need to do, and then work on that area. It'll save you time. And this stuff's not easy in terms of on the person doing it. It's a work, especially when you get these bigger football players. We've got size 15, size 17 feet that you're working on. And it is you're putting all of your effort in there. You do that person's both their ankles, and you're tired. So it's about figuring out kind of, all right, how to be economical with it if you have a bunch of people that you're going to do. Figure out, okay, what do they need? I'm going to hit it, and I'm going to move to the next one.
Yeah, and this isn't going anywhere. It's only going to get more and more. Mm-hmm. This isn't something that's some gimmick we came up with and now it's going to go away. It's getting bigger and bigger, like body tempering. It's here to stay. So you guys are learning it right up front before the experts get a hold of it and run. And it's, we got this new thing. It's like, oh, okay.
And one last thing to finish on is this is not really a permanent change just because you had somebody work on it, all of a sudden your dorsiflexion is fixed. Donnie alluded to that before. You have to train in the new range. If you want some change to go from transient to permanent, you have to train in the new range. So whenever I work on someone's ankles, if they've achieved some new range of motion, they are going to be doing activities in that range of motion immediately following. So if I've got somebody who's got more dorsiflexion, they're squatting right after it. It doesn't have to be heavy, whatever it is, but they're going to use it. And we've got a couple different things, using the fat bells and some things that we'll use with bands as well to kind of work on putting you in that new range under a little tension so that, kind of your nervous system, your brain, works towards keeping that more permanent, if that makes sense. If you just do this ankle stuff and walk out the door or go sit and watch TV, tomorrow you're going to be right back where it is. So you have to train in the new range to make it a permanent change.
Yeah, and I'm going to do I'm going to show you this with this band before T-Money gets started, okay?